Is all of our moaning about fancy bikes not working for real people actually starting to have an influence on the cycling industry? Well, maybe, because a story in Bike Radar caught my eye this week, and it was about Factor's new Monza Aero bike.
Yeah, I saw this.
So it said, Factor introduces its first bike for amateurs. The new Factor Monza Aero bike is made for everyday racers, but is faster than a tarmac SL8. And firstly, Factor introduces its first bike for amateurs is an insane statement, is it not? Because who the hell were they making bikes for before?
The pros don't buy their bikes. So you're trying to tell me they didn't make any bikes for the people that actually paid the money so that they could actually sponsor the pro teams.
When you actually think about it, it is insanity, isn't it? And, we've talked about this stuff for years now. The idea that a bike brand, for the first time ever, is making a bike that actually factors in its customers.
It's called Factor as well.
Yeah.
To be fair, Factor are not alone in this. I would say lots of brands have fallen into the trap of sponsoring pro teams and then designing their ranges around those people, the people who are tasked with selling the bikes rather than potentially the people who are buying the bikes.
Marketing first. I do feel like... what we're going to see is the new style of marketing is going to be going, this bike is for you, rather than this bike is for a professional cyclist and therefore you should want it.
100%. Do you want me to read out a little bit from their website? Because they have the marketing dialed in. It says, not all racers are pros. Across the world, passionate competitors balance family, careers, life responsibilities while still pushing themselves to their limits on their bike. Their world championships happen at local crits, club races, fast group rides and solo breakaways at dawn. They commute to work, train in the dark, race on weekends and push for their personal bests whenever they're riding. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on. But that's all about, it's very much, we get you. We get you're a real person.
But the first sentence is the most ridiculous thing. Not all racers are pros. I think what you'll find is 99.9% of racers are not pros.
You missed out a lot of nines over there, mate. It's 99.99999%. It's not.
But also, probably 99% of cyclists are not racers.
And that next.
Yeah.
But a lot of, proper roadies, traditional roadies, whatever you want to call them, the quintessential roadie are like performance, like speed, like fast, like to feel like they're part of that bubble, even if they don't race. And that is absolutely fine. That is totally cool. I've been one of those people. I kind of secretly still am one of those people, but I try to not be. But it just seems wild, doesn't it?
So what makes it suited to everyday racers and riders, I hear you ask? Well, according to this article, it's got 34mm tyre clearance, a more democratic fit geometry, whatever that means, which apparently includes slightly higher stack height, integrated frame storage, because as a real person without a soigner, you probably want to carry your own stuff, but as they say, bike bags are not Aero. So it's internal.
Yep.
They've got a simplified cable routing system, UDH compatible, and an integrated cockpit designed to better serve the needs of amateur riders. It's apparently inspired by the World Tour spec Ostra Vam, but uses a simplified design aimed at making it more practical and affordable. Factor says it's 2.5 watts less aerodynamic at 45 kph than the Ostra Vam, but according to them, it's faster than the Cervelo S5 and the Tarmac SL8. Emphasis on according to them. And the frame set kit, which includes seat post and cockpit, costs £3,800 or $4,000, 4,600 euros.
2.5 watts at 45 kph is, well, if you downgrade that to actual normal human speeds, that's actually really not that much slower than their fancy pro bike. Is it faster than the Cervelo S5 and the Tarmac SL8? As you said, to their claims, who knows in reality.
But I've got loads of questions of you. Did they test it with a rider on or without a rider? Because now that they've made the geometry more relaxed, so the rider's going to sit more upright, so that'll be slower. Or they're going, because the Tarmac SL8, obviously they've built that around pros. So it just doesn't make, I don't know, does that even matter?
Well, the thing is, they're still trying to target racers, aren't they? Like, and it'll be the same with their World Tour bikes. The people who are buying them will be amateur racers, and for those people, those stats do matter, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want fast bikes, even if they don't actually ride them fast or ride them in an aggressive position. What is good about this, and I am convinced that we're going to see more and more and more and more and more and more of it, is brands are cottoning on that consumers want products that are for them. And I think we're going to see more brands saying, this bike is for you and it's fast.
We saw that with that Basso SV that Francis did a first look on.
Yep.
It was, what were they calling it? A super bike made for consumers.
Yep.
And the reason that was because it had a higher stack height, or it was a better geometry or something.
Yeah. More realistic for actual people, the people that are going to be paying for this bike rather than getting it for free.
Yeah.
And Boardman have done similar with all of their new range, is that they're specifically saying we've designed this for everyday people, not for professional cyclists.
So there's a language shift happening in marketing.
Yes.
Hopefully the features also
line up with that.
Yeah.
And the things that we talk a lot about is we want shorter reach, we want a higher stack height, we want bikes that go down to a smaller size to accompany smaller people. We want narrower bars spec'd with the appropriate smaller sizes.
Which has
cranks,
happened
cetera,
on this factor.
Yeah, so it looks like the 52 is spec'd with a 38 centimetre wide bar, which is appropriate. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's good that they're actually thinking about these things and doing these things.
I get that, but in an ideal world, I would rather have handlebars completely separate. Because generalization, I do understand that smaller people tend to run smaller bars. But if you measure little Josh Reed's shoulders, he's tiny, he rides an extra small bike. His shoulders measure 40 centimeters.
Yeah, but
so he needs 40 centimeter bars. My shoulders measure 44 centimeters. So I ride 44 centimeter bars. I know it's not normal, but I just think that should just be a completely different thing. So you should be able to pick it on all bikes, not just... Yes, it is better probably standardized. You probably hit more of a target market by doing what you guys are saying. But in an ideal world, I'd like to see it completely separate.
Well, yeah, in an ideal world, everybody gets a custom build and a bike fit.
Shop. Yeah.
But that isn't the reality for most people, unfortunately. Yeah. So in the worst case scenario, a better solution is an off-the-peg bike or a bike that comes with some kind of finishing products, is that in the first place, they are spec'd for the masses rather than for better economies of scale, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, it's just the industry's got a very long way to go.
It's good seeing stuff like this, though, because it means that brands are thinking differently, especially as a brand that do also have some skin in the pro game as well. So I don't know, maybe they're seeing off the back of their pro bikes that consumers or people are buying their bikes and going, actually, this doesn't quite work for me. It's compromised in ways that mean I don't want to buy it, and that's perhaps having an impact on them then adding bikes like this into the range. I hope it sells well. I don't actually personally care if Factor do well or not, but if they are selling bikes, I hope they're selling this bike over the other bikes, and it encourages them and other brands to start thinking about people first. The hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are actually buying their products rather than the ones that they're slinging it to for free, or the ones that they are even paying to ride their bikes.
Is this not just a lot of marketing nonsense again? Because they're saying instead of designing the bikes for the pros, they're designing it for normal people. But if you look historically, this is not just at Factor, this is everybody. They didn't make the bikes great for the pros to start off with either, because they were always running, back in the past, mega long stems and mega negative reach. And then you get guys like Ridley brings out the Noah that's supposed to be very aggressive, but then half the pros from their team riding the bikes put loads of spacers underneath it to bring it up again. So that wasn't designed right. Then you get Colnaga's Y1 RS that is made for Pogacar with different geometry, but now he seems to be riding the V5 RS that's just come out. So who are they making these bikes? Who's anybody making these bikes for? or it just sounds like the marketing teams are using all these buzzwords. They hear these things. Maybe they get the handlebars right, but it's kind of like, what way are we going? Then you've got the factor of it's an aero bike, but inherently, to make a bike aero, tube shapes makes it less comfortable to ride. So you're making a bike for normal people that need a more comfortable bike because they're not riding the same speed. So vibration and getting knocked about is going to be an issue. So yes, you're sitting in a more comfortable position, but then being more upright, every impact goes through your spine because your arms aren't taking the suspension as much by being in a forward position. So then the bike's less comfortable. Meaning if anything, yes, you can buy the bike because it looks nice. I agree, aero bikes do look good. But it's possibly not the right bike for you still.
Even if you're an amateur racer, I just feel like you would have a hard time convincing an amateur racer that they wouldn't want an aero bike.
But some amateur racers...
And by aero bike, I mean with aero tube shaping.
I am still of the opinion that if you're an amateur racer, the only thing you should be riding on is steel. Because you're gonna crash. You're gonna write off your bike. You're gonna go, oh wow, I've just written off a 10 grand bike, and I'd rather do that on a bike that I can either get a bit of steel cut out and a new piece put in. And I'm like, if I'm legitimately racing, then I'm spending as much time as I possibly can out of the wind in the bunch and where it doesn't even matter in the first place.
Well, that's don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Aero Tomasini wrote an article. Well, he didn't write the article. Somebody wrote an article and they interviewed him. It was Cyclist magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And he spoke and said, a reason a lot of the guys are crashing these days is because they're riding carbon and more harsher bikes. So when they're cornering, the bike loses contact with the ground every now and then because there's not it
doesn't flex into the corner.
It doesn't flex as much. Steel used to kind of sit better. Bianchi tried to actually market this by calling the countervail technology in the frames. And they said by having CV, it's like a vibration dampening layer in the carbon, the bike, they argued saying on their TT bike, you can corner on the bars, on the TT bars, like in your aero bars, because the bike didn't like throw you around as much in the corners. So yeah, you're right, Jimmy. I think steel frame would be better.
I wonder how long it was going to take us to start
talking about
everyone should be riding steel. And it's taken us 15 or 20 minutes.
At the end of the day, anyone can do whatever they want. You know, I used to go to a load of the crits in London. You'd see people turning up then in like fourth cat crits with 10, 15,000 pound bikes. And if they can afford that and they're happy and comfortable doing that, no bother at all. Like, fill your boots. But I think it doesn't necessarily... It sets an expectation that you need these things to be fast, to be successful, to be given credibility and taken seriously. But, and I'm sure you mentioned this the other week, if you turned up on a bike, on a steel bike or an old alloy bike, and you won a race or you got yourself on the podium, you are going to get a hell of a lot more respect than doing it on a 15,000 pound bike.
Yeah, I agree. My problem isn't with the bikes and what people choose. By all means, choose anything you want. My problem is with the brands making the marketing to tell people that they've made this bike for them when they clearly didn't really make the bike for them. It's in no world do I recommend to a customer that comes into my shop that's in his mid-40s that does take it seriously and likes riding, buy an aero bike. Because most of them can't ride the speed. That really makes a difference. I know loads of these aero people that are obsessed with it will say, it makes a difference. Yes, it does. But the difference is marginal compared to what comfort will give you. So essentially, it's not the right bike. Yes, you can buy it because it looks good. But it's I've got quite a few customers. And we bring him up quite a lot. Chris Healy. He had a full Aero Sartor Lampo. And now he's riding Titanium Riley. And he's enjoying it a lot more. And he is riding a lot faster. The bike's heavier. The bike's not nearly as aero, but it's a lot more comfortable for longer rides. And he's just doing better on the bike. And he keeps buying bigger and bigger tires for it now. So yeah. The marketing is my issue, not the choice.
So last point on this before we move on. I have noticed there is a movement to increase stack heights in the like hipster cool boy racing scene stuff. And usually that is like a really good early marker for what is going to start happening. So they were the first people to do like the super turned in shifters, and they were the first people to start wearing super long aero socks and all of the kind of weird stuff, which is now just like a given. And they are starting to flip their stems so they're positive. They're starting to put loads of spacers in, and it all comes down to getting into super aero, time trial-esque positions that are as narrow as they legally can be, and their arms tucked up almost into a TT position in line with their bodies. So I think what we are going to see over the next year or two, whether it tests faster or not, or whether it's, or at least as a trend, is going to be increased stack. And I think to achieve that, you're going to start seeing positive stems rather than negative stems.
And in that case, I'm slamming everything on my bikes, because like Aero socks, turned-in levers, all these things just completely lost me. Like, that's turned-in levers is my pet hate. Like, I don't mess with people's positions, but I'm so tempted every bike that comes with them just straighten the levers out again. But yeah,
You should, to be fair, you should.
Yeah.